the rest of the viewers around the world, this question also matters to you. Jeremy Corbyn, less than 1 year ago, was elected in a landslide victory as the leader of the Labour Party, the leader of the British opposition. Jeremy Corbyn was one of the leaders of the anti-war movement in Britain. He had spent decades in Parliament supporting all the righteous causes, including the cause of the Palestinian people and many, many other righteous causes around the world. He even presented this show from time to time. That has guaranteed him the enmity and the hatred, is not too strong a word, of those who stand against those righteous causes. So just a few months ago, and only 9 months after he had been elected, a coup was mounted against him. Its leader is a name you'll be familiar with: Tony Blair. Yes, that's right. The former Labour leader, the former Prime Minister of Britain, and his principal acolytes, Peter Mandelson, who was his right-hand man, and Alistair Campbell were the two chief lieutenants of the Blair era. But all kinds of people you've never heard of. That was Chuka Umunna. This is Tom Watson. He's the deputy leader of the Labour Party. This is Hilary Benn, the son, I'm sorry to say, of the late and great Tony Benn, who was our leader over decades. I don't know who this person is, but I'm sure that she's one of those biting at Jeremy Corbyn's heels. They have, that's Mandelson, they have mounted a coup to overthrow Jeremy Corbyn. And the most almighty, cataclysmic conflict inside the Labour Party is now underway. And ballot papers in the election will be going out in the next couple of days. And the courts will decide on the 10th of August to whom those ballot papers are to go. Because those who tried to overthrow Corbyn then tried to rule out hundreds of thousands of Labour members from voting in the contest, illegally, in my opinion. And we'll hear what the court says. The court already agreed with me that it was illegal, but the appeal was heard in the High Court today. And therefore, the Labour Party's national executive has spent £250,000 of Labour members' money to try and rule those Labour members out of vocational officer, Young Labour being the youth section of the Labour Party. Abdulaziz, welcome to the show. Why has the coup against Jeremy Corbyn been mounted, and why has it failed, in your opinion?
So I think it was launched in order to try to bring back an era of the Labour Party by, I think, characters who could easily be described as Blairites. And I think then, unfortunately, it was supported by many members of the soft left who I think were somewhat disappointed with the idea of how electable the Labour Party was. I think the reason it's failed fundamentally is because hundreds of thousands of individuals have flocked to the Labour Party and flocked to the idea of moving beyond neoliberalism, moving beyond the privatisations, moving beyond the warmongering of the Blair years, and wanting actually a progressive future for the Labour Party, a future that returns to the core values of the Labour Party.
Now, Corbyn has built the Labour Party in less than 1 year into the biggest Labour Party it's ever been, and built Labour in Britain into the biggest Labour and Social Democratic Party in Europe, if not the world. And according to today's opinion polls, he's just halved the Tory lead. So just what is it that they're disappointed in?
I think what's happened is that people have underappreciated something. which is that even Tony Blair in 1994, if he was being hammered by the media absolutely as consistently as Corbyn has been, and if he had 80% of his MPs militating against him and leaking against him and not showing him the support, would have found it absolutely impossible or incredibly difficult to win in a year like 97, where Labour would have won if they had put a donkey, a broomstick or anything else up. I think the reality is that they haven't been sufficiently sympathetic of this reality and have been convinced that, well, wait a minute, if only we communicated a little bit better. I think the problem is this with that idea. Two things. There's two things that Blair did that we can never do again. Number one, he sold out the soul of the Labour Party to Murdoch and the media establishment. And number two, he sold out the soul of the Labour Party to the banking establishment. These are two things, and in return, he got decent coverage to the point where the Sun was willing to come out and say, vote for Labour. Now, these are two things we can never return to again. And frankly, actually, I don't think either the media establishment or the banking establishment would bother with Labour anymore, because actually they've got a Tory party that are more than willing to look after their best interests, whereas I think in the past, actually, there was a lot of incompetence in the Tories, and therefore they turned to Labour as a way of fulfilling their best interests. So I think that misunderstanding and misappreciation means that they're willing to be sold by this unfortunate lie that if only we communicated a little bit better, everything would be okay.
But Blair lost 4,875,000 votes between his first election and his third. That loss of votes was surely because the mass of working people didn't benefit as they should have from the 10 richest years in British history, with a government with the 3 biggest Labour majorities in British history.
Absolutely. And what's even more concerning is the degree to which actually people supporting, or Owen Jones himself, are willing to make concessions on another matter that we really shouldn't be talking about making concessions on. And that's on the topic of how we treat people from other countries and actually how we see people from other cultures and other backgrounds. And if they genuinely believe that just being a little bit more willing to be xenophobic is about to win back millions of voters for the Labour Party, they completely misunderstood that actually, like you said, it was the economic disenfranchisement and disenchantment of lots of communities, and they're feeling that Labour was no longer a party committed to them that actually led to us losing those millions of votes, along with, of course, the Iraq War and other decisions that were genuinely against the best interests of lots of working people.
Just this very evening, Owen Smith, the contender for the Blairite camp, backed the Prevent agenda, which, with a name like yours, I'm assuming you know, is deeply unpopular amongst the British Muslims. The Prevent agenda, which is supposed to prevent extremism and radicalization, actually has the opposite effect by scapegoating and targeting Britain's Muslim community, the vast majority of whom want nothing to do with extremism, let alone terrorism.
I hadn't actually known that you'd done this, and if that's true...
In the debate this evening, yes.
Yeah, I think I actually missed the debate. But if that's true, then that's another reason for why no one should be voting for Owen Smith. And the simple truth is this. The Prevent agenda is literally telling millions of public servants to spy on Muslims. They're telling millions of public servants to break their relationship trust, be it a doctor, be it an orthodontist, be it a teacher, be it a lecturer. And it's not something that we should concede one iota to. And the idea that the government itself would literally turn entire swathes of society against a poor marginalized community is extraordinarily terrible. But actually, if the Labour Party of all parties isn't willing to stand up for those for minorities and for the Muslim community, then why should the Muslim community support the Labour Party? And I think a Labour Party with Owen Smith, if it's willing to concede on the question of Prevent, is not the Labour Party for Muslims to be supporting.
Thank you. An excellent contribution. Thank you very much, Abdulaziz Suleiman. He's the Young Labour intern. And talk with our young genius, Robert in Peterhead. Go ahead, Robert.
Evening, Judge.
Evening.
So I remember waking up on the 24th of June and seeing the whole coup involved with the Labour Party in full swing. I remember walking through and looking at the television and seeing all these high-profile MPs just resigning one after the other.
Every hour, Robert.
Yeah.
One
exactly.
for every news bulletin.
Exactly. And the reason they did it, in my opinion, was because they saw that Corbyn was essentially bringing the party back to where it should be, firmly on the left, and because all these people because all the Blairites who were resigning were all multi-millionaires who championed wealth over the will and faith and ability and essentially the views of the people. They championed their wealth more than the opinions, and they championed their wealth more than the people, and this is the reason that they resigned, because they saw that Corbyn was taking the Labour Party back to being about the people and the working class.
And they thought that they could break him as a man, you see.
They thought
that by resigning in this coordinated way with military precision and launching this massive media-backed bullying operation against him, they thought that they could force him out.
Exactly, and they failed. They failed catastrophically. I mean, let's face it, the Labour Party is not going in the direction of the multi-millionaires and the media and Rupert Murdoch and the Sun and the Daily Mail. It's not going in the direction of them anymore. It's the youth. The youth are flocking to the Labour Party now because Jeremy Corbyn has shown that he can mobilise the youth and the students. I mean, especially seeing as how in 2010 and prior to that, it was the Liberal Democrats who championed the student vote. Now it's the Labour Party. And the thing is, now that the Labour Party are now getting in with the youth, the future is essentially theirs. The future is theirs because the new generation of people, the new generation of students and workers are going to be left-wing. They're going to be growing up with the Labour Party that was known in the 60s and the 70s, the party that championed workers' rights, that championed students' rights.
Indeed. Robert, thanks for that great call, as always. Now, Angela Eagle was the first challenger to Jeremy Corbyn, but she didn't quite take off, if you get my drift. She crashed back to earth and was superseded by somebody I have never heard of before this all began. Although he did sit in Parliament at the same time as me, but I wouldn't have recognised him if he'd been sitting next to me on the bus. That's how significant he was. Have a look at this.
I have lodged my papers with the General Secretary today to launch this challenge, and I'm very much looking forward to launching my campaign later today.
Labour values, he's been a loyal servant of our party, he's done a good job in some respects, but he is not a man who can lead us into the next election and win for Labour, and working people in this country cannot afford to have a Labour Party that isn't presenting a powerful opposition and a credible alternative government.
Well, both of them claim to be the unity candidate, to reunite the party, even though 60% of the members had just a few months before elected Jeremy Corbyn. They were such unity candidates that they couldn't agree between the two of them which one should go forward. So, of course, the misogynist male candidate elbowed the woman candidate out of the way, with the support of some women Labour MPs that are never done telling us how gender is the most important issue in politics. There's one of them, I said I didn't know who she was, I've just been told who she was, a woman called Jess Phillips, who's in the newspapers today blaming Corbyn for the fact that Labour members have just chosen 3 men to be the candidate for Mayor of Manchester, Mayor of Liverpool and Mayor of Birmingham. It is A pity that at least one of these three candidates was not a woman. But that very same complainer, Jess Phillips, supported that man you've just watched, Owen Smith, against that woman that you have just watched, Angela Eagle. Which just goes to show they're a bunch of hypocrites. Inconsistent, contradictory hypocrites. Any stick to beat Corbyn will do. Any stick. And they have seized upon anything and everything. Gender. They've seized upon his support for the Palestinians. They've seized upon his role on the issue of Ireland, on the issue of trade union rights. He even today spoke out against British arms sales to Saudi Arabia being used in the war in Yemen, in the midst of all this. It's a great record, you know. Now I've got to take a very short break, just 3 minutes. Total devastation that now has spread throughout the region. Tony Blair is not down. He's still behind political events in Britain and inside the Labour Party. He's backing a candidate called Owen Smith to overthrow the anti-war, pro-Palestinian Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn. Take a look at this.
How do you respond? There was a point raised in the audience, and it's something else that's been raised in the media as well. How do you respond to this criticism that it's a witch hunt, that it's political point scoring, as opposed to...
Catherine, I've been in this Labour Party for 30 years. I've only remembered in the last 9 months a discussion about anti-Semitism in the Labour Party. That's the truth. That's the truth. It's in the last 9 months that we've been dealing with. Now, I'm not sure why that's come about, and I don't blame you for it, Jeremy, but I do think we've got to do more to deal with it.
Excuse me, can we have a bit of peace and quiet?
This room is an indicator of it in some regards. We have, Jeremy says he wants a comradely debate. We are not behaving like comrades to each other in this party right now. Too many people are telling us in our CLPs that the debate is ugly, that they feel intimidated, that there is an abusive dialogue between different wings of our party. We've got to heal the Labour Party. We've got to unite the Labour Party. Otherwise, we will never win. We will be split and we will lose. And the Tories and those people who are racist in this country will benefit.
Well, just in case you didn't get the code, this was Blair's candidate Owen Smith accusing Jeremy Corbyn of anti-Semitism. No more foul lie could possibly be uttered. He said he wasn't accusing him, but of course he said that anti-Semitism had become a problem in the last 9 months. And the last 9 months were the 9 months that Jeremy Corbyn had been the leader of the Labour Party. And what he really means is not that Corbyn is anti-Semitic or that the people who support him are anti-Semitic. What they mean is that Corbyn supports the Palestinian people in their struggle to be free, in their struggle to be free from the occupation of an illegal settler state. That's the stakes here. Corbyn is against war, invasion, occupation, racism, and the Blairites can't stand it. They cannot put up with a Labour Party on the right side of these questions. They say they want unity, but in fact they are wrecking the Labour Party in public opinion because they cannot accept the victory of Corbyn less than 1 year ago. And I repeat, in that 1 year, Corbyn has built the Labour Party. He has tripled the Labour Party in size. Can you imagine that? From 200,000 to 600,000 and climbing. He's made it the biggest Labour Party in its entire history of 116 years. He has built the biggest Labour Party, Social Democratic Party, in the entire European continent and perhaps in the world. Let's take